Welcome to Talk to Brazil with Tom Reaoch, the business connector to business in Brazil. Talk to Brazil is a leading business podcast, talking with business experts throughout the world. I'm Tom Reaoch, an American known as the King of Networking, connecting people from my studio in Brazil. Today's guest is Timothy Hughes, social selling expert, joining us from London, England. Timothy Hughes is the 16th most influential marketer in the world. CEO, co-founder, content creator at Digital Leadership Associates, known as DLA Ignite, using LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube networks as part of the creator economy. Tim is author of Social Selling, Influencing Buyers and Changemakers. So Tim, why do so many people and companies still fear social selling?
Tom, thank you so much for inviting me on, and I'm so excited to be talking to you today. So thank you for that. To answer your question, I think people are often scared of the new. When cars took over from horses,
right?
When electric engines took over from steam engines, when the electric light took over from gaslight, people were scared of that because it means change. But as we found out, because we've been able to benchmark and do our own research and own data, using social selling is more efficient, it's more effective, it gets you more results for less input. So all of those things are kind of what we're searching for in life and in business. So and I think over time, just as much as the electric engine replaced the steam engine and the car replaced the horse, social selling will replace legacy methods like cold calling and sending out spam email. I mean, the figures that we're seeing that people are getting, responses that people are getting from that are very, very, very small.
Right.
But yes, I think people are probably scared of the new and are probably more happy to lay people off and quite often seem to want to let the company go bust rather than actually embrace something that's new and actually could take their company to the next level.
Well, I agree with you in part, the fear of the new. But social selling isn't new. It's been around. You've been in this business for a while. We're talking about digital change, and this is pre-pandemic. The pandemic obviously, threw a bucket of water on everybody. So there's nothing really new about it. And those who did not adapt during the pandemic, it was sink or swim. But still today, I still feel from people I'm involved with, there's still a challenge of understanding it. And it's changing every day. You mentioned, and I mentioned that, Twitter's old. Twitter may not even be here anymore. We don't know that. LinkedIn started, it's changed differently. Facebook, Instagram, we have TikTok now. Tomorrow we'll probably have something else. So it's an ever-changing world. It's new every day.
It is. I've been on Twitter now for 14 years. I put out an article yesterday, it's the 7th anniversary of an article I wrote, which was how to get 10 C-level meetings a week using Twitter, which was a case study of a friend who is getting 10 C-level meetings a week through Twitter. And I put in the article yesterday was that person's now had 3,296, I think it is, C-level meetings, which, if you gave that to one salesperson, that would make a massive impact onto people's pipeline and revenues. And certainly they wouldn't be thinking about recession and laying people off. They'd be talking about growth. So yes, the difference is that what we've seen is the fact that there is there's a common language and a common culture across social. And so actually what this is about, it's not, when you talk about there's Twitter and there's TikTok and there's YouTube, the problem just becomes too big. Because here I am, I've got, because if you go onto LinkedIn, you're being told by LinkedIn experts, you have to understand the algorithm and you have to understand how the product works. It's nothing like that at all. It's a bit like me saying, right, okay, to drive a car, this is the steering wheel, right, these are the indicators, these are the pedals, off you go. but actually it's about driving the car. When you get to a set of traffic lights and they're on red, what do? I haven't told you at any point that you have to stop, which is actually part of the culture of the road. We talk about walking digital corridors and having digital conversations, and that's what it is. It's about understanding the language and the culture, which is across the whole of social. So it doesn't matter what platform it is. Classic example is that on LinkedIn, there's 900 million people, but they don't log in every day. Some people only log in once a month. So if I'm trying to influence somebody and they only log in once a month, what do I do? Well, they may not actually be actively using LinkedIn, but I may find out that they're actively using Instagram. They take their dogs. They've got 2 Labradors. They take their dogs for a walk. So how is it that, so in a way that's non-spammy, how is it that I can basically start up a conversation with them on Instagram? Well, if I'm being taught how to manipulate the algorithm on LinkedIn, I've missed an opportunity. So this is about being social, and it's about, and as you say, it's very clearly it's a modern skill, but a modern skill from that article that I told you about just now, it's clearly 7 years old. In my new book, I've got Chris Fleming, who's the CEO of Cyberhawk, to write a piece, and he talks about how he took Cyberhawk, which is a drones company, to be a digital organization. And here's somebody who's a startup organization, and they sell they use drones to go in and look at pylons and oil rigs. So he needs to get and talk to some of the biggest companies in the world. The Saudi Aramcos, the Texacos, the BPs, and the Shells. He's not going to do that by cold calling them.
No.
But he's actually being able to get access to them by using social, using standard networking techniques that that we've used for years. And he talks about how that this isn't also just so selling. That we know that
I agree with you there. It's not, but most people take it that it's all about selling, and it isn't.
Yeah. So we may be here to talk about sales, but this is also about the modern job hunter. So this is about your employees of the future. It's about the modern investor. The modern investor, the modern job hunter, and the modern buyer are on social media. The data shows that. So from the beginning of time, we're always been saying, people have said, if you want to sell, you need to fish where the fish are. So we have to move from analog on to digital, and we need to know how to do that. Now,
but to your point, I want to what you had mentioned, and I believe there are a number of fish in their different lakes and their different water bodies. And what I see you doing, obviously you mentioned Instagram, you mentioned LinkedIn, but you actually fish in each one of those ponds. And we have to understand, and I agree with you, we have to understand where our target, which pond is he or she in?
Yes. So whenever we start with social, what we need to do is not to spread ourselves too thinly. We need to go where our customers are. Ultimately, as we go through intermediate and become a more expert, then we can go on to more platforms. I'm on pretty much everything, and I have connections, and I'm able to network and influence people on those platforms. The thing is that, as I was saying with Chris and Cyberhawk, as an organization, they decided to go to digital, but this was 2 years ago. And so go to your point, if as an organization you are not digital and you are not doing this, Chris did it 2 years ago. You are already behind. And what we need to do is that we need to understand where our clients are and invest in those things, not to understand how the platform works, but how to understand how it is to be social. So how is it that we can build influence with people and basically build connections? So we have a definition of what we think social selling is. If I may read that out. It's using your presence and behavior on social media to build influence, make connections, grow relationships and trust, which lead to conversations and commercial interaction.
Right.
So what I haven't said is what you have to do is go onto social media, connect to people and pitch.
Mm-hmm.
That's spam.
Mm-hmm.
And or go onto social media and basically just send me a connection request and say buy my stuff because we're great. Again, that's spam. What social selling is a mechanism to allow you to have conversations. Every B2B organization, regardless of what they sell, to sell it, they have to have a conversation.
Right.
And so what we're doing is that we're using...
conversation has to start, and it's a two-side thing.
Yes. And so what we're doing is that we're using social media to get conversations at scale. Mm-hmm. And that means contacting people, having and talking to them as you would do at a networking event.
Right.
You know, you don't go to a networking event and walk in and say, you know, buy my product because we're great and we've got 30% off, because security would throw you out. You go in there and say, hi, Tom, how are you doing? Right. You're in Brazil. That's really interesting. You know, I actually been to Brazil on holiday. And you'd say, oh, where did you go? And I said, well, I've done the tourist stuff. And,
right.
And you know, and I went piranha fishing in the Pantanal and stuff like that. And what happens is that we then start having this conversation, and that starts opening up and building. We start liking, knowing, and trusting somebody.
Right.
And
authenticity, right?
It is authenticity, and what happens is that a lot of sales leaders think, yeah, but that's not happening fast enough. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I can do it faster than you can on a phone. Well, and I actually have, and I have the figures to prove it. So, so the fact of the matter is, what do you want to do? Do you want to do the slow cold calling stuff where you can't get through to people, mm-hmm. or do you want to do the fast at scale stuff, which is social selling? Right. But you got to remember that social media is social media. It's media where you're social. It's not media where you spam people, and that is the mistake that people often make.
Well, to that point, I see on your site right now, one of the points you show up here is exponential visibility. Because at that point, I sort of find that's sort of where I think I am. Today, much of my focus, I want to be found. And we as business people want to be found, because we're saying searches. People are searching for everything from pizza to oil pipelines every day, so everything's happening. And so on that side of the story, and what I found, I need to be out there because I go to networking events and talk to people and everything else. That's the way it is and was. But there's 8 billion people out there. They're searching for I don't know what every day. And what I found in that I really have to create, and that gets a little bit to personal branding. Who am I? Why am I out there? What am I offering? And to be found. And companies do that. Some companies do that well on a product, on a box of whatever. But many people and business leaders, I feel, have that as a challenge.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Tom. And so whenever we go out and whenever we want to buy something, what we do is that we're going to go to search. We now all understand how search works. Mm-hmm. But search, like social media, is evolving. Mm-hmm. So now more people under the age of 30 go to social media to search than they do go to Google. Right. Generally what happens is that we actually put them side by side. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is that if we go to Google and say, what's the capital of Nigeria? It will give you the answer. If we go to Google and say, what's the best CRM system in the world? What you'll get is 1 million CRM vendors basically mm-hmm. buying that search. Mm-hmm. And therefore you don't get the answer. Whereas if you go to social media and say, what's the best CRM system in the world, you'll get people answering you, and they'll answer you with their views. Therefore, you'll get something more nuanced. The other thing about search is that quite often when we go to search, we actually don't know the question.
Right.
So if we go to so we call it discovery rather than search.
Right.
So what happens is that if we go to Google and we say, give me the top 10 Italian restaurants in London, mm-hmm. it will give you probably an article that has that in. Mm-hmm. Whereas what we're doing is that quite often we're going to LinkedIn, for example, and we're looking for something, but we don't know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that we do is that we help organizations to be in that situation that when somebody finds them, the person goes, "You look interesting." Because when we go to our mobile phones and we go to LinkedIn, for example, and we go down our timeline, what we do is we go boring, 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 because most people are posting brochures and we're not interested.
Right.
And what you need to be, what your listeners need to be, is when I go, what's that? That's interesting.
Right.
Well, I didn't know that, that. And so what we've done is that one of the things that we help people with is to get what we call buyer-centric profiles. It's a profile that when your buyer sees it, they go, that's interesting and that's intriguing. And the transformation is that traditionally when you've got your employees and your salespeople out there, as a buyer, I look at a salesperson and go, I'm not interested in you. I don't trust you. I don't believe a word you say. And you're just going to try and sell me something I don't want.
Right.
So you just move on. Whereas what we're doing is we're enabling people to have buyer-centric profiles. So when a person finds you, they go, that's interesting. I think that person can help me. They actually walk towards that person and actually contacts them and say, and then a conversation takes place, just like any other sales conversation about whether you can help them or not. But, we have a client, and Chris Mason, the CEO of Namos Consulting, talks about it in my book, which is that they've got a $2.6 million deal out of that. Mm-hmm. They've then subsequently taken another $500,000 out of that. So this is not itsy bitsy, $50 here or whatever. These are people doing using social to generate multi-million pound or multi-million dollar deals, and having a buyer-centric profile, or a profile that is not about it's not about necessarily about you. It's about what your buyer is interested in. That's one of the keys that you need.
Well, I'm going to take your example back to searching. All right.
Yes.
One of the things I did years ago, because obviously at the beginning of internet and everything, you would ask somebody, "How did you find me?" And then you were surprised when somebody said, "Well, I found you on internet," because that was new at that time. Internet was new, so I'm part of new for internet.
Yes.
So I found you on internet, and that could have been through a site or whatever. But as time evolved, I came to the point of asking people, "What were you looking for when you found me?" And then I found that helped me more than just knowing, they found me on the internet. That's it. I know that.
Yeah.
But what were you looking for? And I got some really interesting positive reinforcements coming back from that, of people really searching for something else that had absolutely nothing to do with me, but finding me, and then it evolved into another business opportunity. And I think that's something that's interesting. That's back to the visibility, the exponential visibility. Many times we're shooting for what we think wants to be seen. But people are looking for something maybe different, but when they do see or find you or your company, it sparks something that interests them in something that might not have been apparent at the first click.
Yes, I remember talking to somebody, and they hadn't found us. Mm-hmm. And I said, "What were you searching for?" And they said, "Programmatic social selling." Mm-hmm. And I said, "Well, we do that." And they said, "Yes, but we didn't find you when we searched for it." Right. And that's about putting yourself in the shoes of the buyer, and thinking about, okay, so what is it that they're searching for, or what, and that quite often is, if you're a CRM vendor and you say, well, my buyers search for a CRM. Okay. But I can tell you that Salesforce, HubSpot, and all the other big players are basically buying those searches. So you're going to get lost. What you need to be thinking about is the long tail. So what are some of the other things that people are searching for? Some of the things that, what are the searches that Salesforce and HubSpot are not going to buy, or they haven't thought of? And that's about having one of the things that we do is that we brainstorm with the team some of those sorts of searches. In effect, it's keywords or key phrases, because most of us now search in phrases rather than words.
Well, that's true. I think part of the change reason is that it's more into the whole question or series of questions than a word.
Yeah, and a lot of people, when you first ask them a question, if they're in the tech sector or something, say, "Oh yes, we're into digital transformation." Say, "Okay, well, go to Google, put in digital transformation, and see how many pages there are."
Right.
Last time I looked, I think it was 2.7 billion.
Billion, right?
Yeah. So you want to be number one on page one of that. It's like, well, good luck. You need to, so you need to be thinking about other words and other keywords. And then
Well, you are the 16th most influential marketer in the world.
I am.
So you've done a bunch of stuff to get there, right?
Which is interesting because I'm a salesman, but maybe that's because I know how to make sure that I'm the 16th. So yeah, I mean, one of the things that you've got to do.
Well, you practice what you preach.
Yeah. Absolutely, yes. And what we do is that we teach our clients what we do internally. So we use what the skills and the tools and the techniques that we use internally, we teach our clients. Mm-hmm. So one of our first clients said they wanted to be, we said, what do you want to be famous for? And they said, well, blockchain. And within a couple of weeks, we got them onto one of the blockchain lists, and immediately, you said getting inbound, they had a request from Cambridge University, which is one of our top universities here in the UK, to come and speak about blockchain.
Right.
So it's one of our clients is number one in the world for power supplies. Because what his company does is that it makes displays, screens, so for computers. And power supplies is really important to them. So it's about making sure. So there's a number of elements to it. So first and foremost, as a business, you need to be generating conversations.
Right.
So one of the things that you need is to have content, because we know that buyers are looking for that. Whenever we go onto social media, we're looking for insight in some shape or form.
Right.
So what we're looking for is content. This podcast is a great piece of content.
No, you're content creator. What am I? When people say, "What are you?" I'm a podcaster. I'm a content creator.
Yeah,
I use people in I think a friendly way to create content. I found that years ago when I had my site, when I started a website. You have to content, and that was massive. So how do you keep creating content? It's through
absolutely.
people.
But content that people want to read. So this isn't about
or listen to, in my case.
Or listen to, yeah. So this isn't about how can I beat the algorithm on Google. The best way to beat the algorithm on Google is to write content that people want to read.
Right.
And or listen to or watch or whatever. And what happens is that over time, that content library builds up. Google will be indexing that, and the more content that you can create and the more content that you can put out there, the better. And of course,
it's a never-ending game, right?
It is a never-ending game, and if you can sprinkle that with the keywords that you've worked out, then what happens is that Google will be indexing those things as well.
Right.
The same as having them on social media and making sure that you're sharing those things out.
Right.
If anyone goes to Google and puts in my name, Timothy Hughes, the first thing they'll see at the top is there's actually a Christian rock star called Timothy Hughes. So he actually always comes out first. But beneath that, there's me, and they'll see is a massive amount of content, content that I've been putting out where I'm saying, if you have this not content where I'm saying, buy my product because we're great or we're a great company, but content we're saying, if you've got this problem, this could be a solution to it. And building that up. So, I went on TikTok, not because I wanted to be a TikTok star, but because I need to understand it as a platform. And, I do a video.
I agree. Same thing here. I really didn't feel that I was a TikToker.
No,
I belong there.
And I'm not.
Well, I didn't. Well, but I've learned to understand again. It's new, and we can't fear the new. We have to embrace it and understand it, and say, how can I use that? And it's a learning. It's a learning proposition.
It is, and so I do a video a week, and now I have 50 videos on there. But that's only because that's not where I sat there and went, I need to go onto TikTok and I need to put loads of videos. No, I just did one a week.
Right, but there are a
And in
billion
50
people on TikTok. A
there are,
billion,
and
1 billion.
I do one a week, and after 50 weeks, you got 50 videos on there.
Right.
So the old Chinese saying is that the best time to plant the tree was 20 years ago. The second best time to plant the tree is today. And what you do is
Right.
you just grind it out,
Right.
and after you do one a week, and after 50 weeks, you got 50 videos. My videos, I'll get 250 views, which is small compared with maybe a TikTok influencer, but that's 250 people that probably haven't heard of me or seen me before.
Well, I found that it attracts people that aren't attracted on any other platform that I'm on. That's it. They're new viewers. Let's put it that way.
They are, yes. So there we are, and so this isn't about. Quite often, people think we need to go from 0 to 100.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't. This is about just going from 0 to 1,
right?
And starting off very, very small, and making that move and saying, okay, I'm just going to do one video a week, and then
which in itself is a lot.
So I actually do. I do a piece of content every single day,
mm-hmm.
And the reason for that, if you don't, you're invisible.
That's right.
So
sink or swim, right?
Yeah. So and we also get people saying to us, but I don't have time to do that.
Right.
And sure, and when you say to them, okay, so what have you been doing? They say, well, I've been ringing people who never pick up,
mm-hmm.
and sending out spam emails where people just block me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
and walking my dog in the morning.
Yeah, and it's like, so why are you doing things? So one of the things that we're saying to people, you need to run an exercise which is called a stop, start, continue. Which is where you sit down with a team, and you run a brainstorming session, and you write on post-it notes, and you put them up, loads of things that you think that the team needs to stop.
Uh-huh.
Put things on a post-it note that they think that they should start, and things on a post-it note that they think they should continue. So, for example, we get a lot of people coming to us saying, we can't social sell because we have metrics, says that how many calls that we need to make and how many emails that we need to make. Say, okay, well, let's talk about this in an adult way and say, let's look at, actually, why don't we use digital leading indicators to be the measures?
Mm-hmm.
And therefore usually when CFOs understand what that means, and the fact that they can get far greater visibility of the business and what's going on before having to think, because people want to make decisions about companies. Doing that based on what's in the CRM is pretty useless.
Well, I'm going to repeat that. You said it's stop, start. What is the
stop, start, continue?
Okay, so write that and continue.
Yeah. So what we do is that we say, right, we're going to stop certain things, and we want to start certain things, and we want to continue certain things.
Simple, and sweet, and short.
Yeah. And we run it as a brainstorm, and what that does is it gets the team involved. It shows that they're empowered, and I've done it in organizations where. You'll get someone technical will put their hand up, because you need to get all the stakeholders involved, and don't get the head of sales to be the moderator, because they'll just. So I have a friend that whenever you do a brainstorm, he only writes up the things that he agrees with. Like, you have to go, Adam, this is a brainstorm. You're supposed to write things that you don't agree with. But anyway. What you do is that, I'm a technical person, put the hand up, and they said, oh, sales have done this and we're losing money. It's like, hold on. Right. Take the emotion out, take a step back. What is it? And what happened was that when the company had started, there was a particular process, because it only took a short amount of time. They said, let's just give it away. Right. Of course, what happened is that the product had grown. What happened now, it took 4 days for each customer to do this, except they weren't billing for it. What happened was
they were absorbing costs, but weren't.
So they were absorbing costs. So these people going, well, sales, and it's like, and sales said, we didn't even know this was going on. Why didn't you tell us? So first thing is about, there's a great let's this is a great way to actually start getting everybody to start communicating with each other and breaking down silos and realizing you can raise this stuff. And when they said, well, if this is the case, then this needs to go in our proposals. And by the way, this isn't fixed price. So if you can just bill the customers anyway. So all of a sudden they found this new area where they thought they were losing money, and they go, no, we can bill for this stuff.
Right.
So, but that's, let's stop doing this. Let's start doing something else. And just having this debate about stop, start, and continue, and working through that. And that's just a great way of, in an organization, for you to start embracing.
I love that. I'm going to use that in a meeting this coming week.
You should do.
No, you've simplified a complex question.
And you can imagine, what happens is you quite often get people sitting there going, this is going on and nobody knows.
It's going on and everybody. I don't say everybody knows. They don't see it, and I agree with you.
Yeah.
It's the stop part that's hard.
Yeah. One of the things that often comes up is people updating the CRM. You always get people moaning about that. Mm-hmm. And one company we did some work with, what it was that they enforced all their employees or their salespeople to go to the office to do the updates. It was the only way the only way that you could do it. And no one had said, well, there's a mobile edition. Why can't we do it so we can do it on the train? Or we get a VPN and we can basically dial in. So it was about, where people were able to air there's a problem. Okay, right. Can we resolve it? Yeah, right. Okay. But now we're a better organization.
Very good. Lots to talk about, right?
Yes.
Well, Tim, I want to thank you, but how can our listeners find you? I can find you everywhere, but how do you prefer to be found, if you do?
Best place to get me is on LinkedIn. I'm Timothy Hughes, or Tim Hughes on LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter. I'm Timothy_Hughes, and our website is dlaignite.com. And my book.
Your books. You actually have books, right?
And my latest book, which is Social Selling Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers, which the second edition with the yellow cover, is available on Amazon worldwide.
Okay, so checking Amazon, punching in Timothy Hughes, author, it will come up. Very good.
It will do, yes.
Well, thanks again for being part, sharing your experience with us.
You're welcome, Tom. It's been really great.
Great. And then for our listeners, again, it's Timothy Hughes, Tim, Othy, last name Hughes. So it's Timothy, known as Tim, Tim, Hughes on LinkedIn, the other social media. And the book, Social Selling, you'll find on Amazon. And the site, DLA Ignite, DLAIGNITE.com. So thanks again, Tim.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay, and thanks to our audience and our listeners. Our sponsor, Focus MI Market Intelligence, specializes in market research for the Brazilian agricultural market. More about them on their site, FOCUSMI.com. Remember, when you talk to Tom, you talk to the world. Goodbye, and thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to Tom Reaoch on Talk to Brazil, the business connector to Brazil.